Hey guys, today we're talking about Erikson Stages of Psychosocial Development. But first, I have to go over a couple of things on Piaget left over from yesterday. So the first thing is criticisms of Piaget's work. Mainly, the biggest thing with that is that Piaget said that the stages were too stratified, meaning basically at age 2, a kid wakes up on their second birthday and they understand object permanence. That's not how it works. That's not how we learn. He also underestimated kids and their ability to think and develop cognitively. The other thing that kind of comes up when talking about Piaget is the Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky's theory really more reflects the communist ideal of we're all in this together, we're all in this communally, much more collectively than Piaget's idea that kids are lone scientists figuring this all out for themselves. So Vygotsky said that instead, kids develop what's called a zone of proximal development. And there's 3 spaces on that. It's what a kid can do alone. So say, for example, math problems. Most elementary school kids can add, subtract, no problem. Okay, then the next stage is what a kid can do with help. So this is going to be your long division, your expanded multiplication, all of that stuff. And then the third stage is anything beyond their reach at the present time, which for most third graders would be calculus, unless you're super smart. Okay, Vygotsky's stuff wasn't really found here in the West until the 80s because of the whole not speaking to the communists thing, whole Cold War thing. So his stuff was considered a little bit more progressive when really it came out in the 20s. Okay. Getting into Erikson and the thing that we need to talk about today, Erikson has 8 stages of social development, and they're all based on conflicts that we experience at different stages in our life. The first one that starts at about birth and goes to about a year is the trust versus mistrust conflict. And here the main focus of a baby's life is, are my basic needs being met? Am I going to be fed when I'm hungry? Am I going to be changed when I need to be changed? Am I going to be comforted when I need to be comforted? So children develop that sense of trust and that bond with their parents, and this piece is going to become important when we talk about attachment tomorrow. Next stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This is toddlers from about age 1, 1.5 to 3 or 4 years old. The big feature for this stage is potty training. There's nothing more embarrassing for a little kid than still being in diapers when they want to, wear underwear like a big kid, and they don't want to have any more accidents and wet the bed, and they want to wear regular pajamas. So the thing that really kind of makes them feel shameful is going to be the toilet training. They develop a sense of personal control. They need to feel like they're advancing, right? The whole idea of a toddler's like, well, I want to be a big kid. That's for babies. If you've ever seen that commercial where they're talking about, no, that's for babies. Age 3 to 6, the preschool years, is initiative versus guilt. The big thing here is kids start to explore not just themselves and their environment, but what they can and can't do. If you've ever had to babysit any child in this age range and told them, no, you can't, make dinner, or no, you can't wear your Elsa costume to school today, or whatever it is, you know that they pretty much have a meltdown. And what they're trying to do is assert their own control, this idea of let me do it, that they start to develop success in this stage. They start to see purpose. And then if they can't do it, they feel guilty for trying and feel like they've failed in some way. The school age stage, about 6 to puberty, is industry versus inferiority. And like I said, school age is kind of the important feature here. Kids need to cope with the social and academic demands of elementary school during this stage. And if you think back to those days, or if you think to any of your younger siblings, cousins, kids you babysit, whatever, there's a lot of struggles that kids go through in elementary school. A lot of them are exposed to high stakes testing for the first time. So kids who do well with that and who are successful tend to feel competent and confident, whereas kids who don't kind of end up getting set up for failure later on down the line. Kids who are, either bullied or have a hard time making friends kind of also feel that in here. The next stage, which is you guys, the adolescent stage, the identity versus role confusion. And I'm sure a lot of you are feeling this heavy right now in your own life. You guys are working on developing a sense of personal identity, who you are, who you're going to be, what you want to do with your life. Do I want to take any more APs after this? Have I gotten my driver's license? Have I chosen where I wanted to go to school? All of that. And success is going to lead to an ability to stay true to yourself. Failure is going to lead to role confusion. I always thought that I was going to play baseball in college, but I'm just not good enough to get off the JV team. So what am I going to do in this situation? Or, I always thought I wanted to go to med school, but I don't have the grades and I really don't know. So this stage is all about exploring you and who you want to be and who you are going to be. The young adulthood stage, 20s to about early 40s, so I guess I fall in there, is the intimacy versus isolation. And this is all about relationships. This is forming intimate, loving relationships with other people, a spouse, a partner, whoever. Success is going to lead to strong, successful relationships. And failure is going to lead to loneliness and isolation. I have a lot of friends who fall onto one end of this spectrum or another. Friends who got married either very, very young, or friends who are still single, and they're kind of all in between. The next stage, the middle adulthood stage from the 40s to right up leading up until retirement, is generativity versus stagnation. This all has to deal with work and parenthood. So what are you leaving for the world? How are you making your mark on the world? How are you influencing future generations? For some people, that means having kids or, mentoring younger people at work. And it leads to a feeling of usefulness and accomplishment. But failure in this is kind of where the midlife crisis comes in. They feel shallow, they don't feel involved in the world, and that's kind of, again, like I said, where the midlife crisis comes in. They feel like they haven't had meaning, and they may experience some problems with that. The last stage, the late adulthood stage, is ego integrity versus despair. So we're really looking at retirement to end of life. And here, older adults, what they're doing is they're reflecting on their life. Have I had a good life? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel wise? Do I feel like I've done what I've needed to do and I've left my mark on the world, and I'm okay if an asteroid comes hurtling towards the Earth tomorrow and just wipes everything out? On the other hand, if they don't have that integrity with their ego, they're going to feel failure and experience a lot of regret and experience depression towards end of life. Now, again, just like the Piaget stages, these seem very, very stagnated, but they don't necessarily go in any sort of particular order. They can go out of order. For example, if you're seeing someone in their mid-50s who loses their job, they may go back to that identity versus role confusion. Well, what do I want to do with my life? You see a couple gets divorced in their 60s. Well, they're back in that intimacy versus isolation. You see someone who was abused as a child really struggling with the trust versus mistrust. Are my basic needs going to be met? Well up into elementary and high school. And kind of like I mentioned before, if an asteroid was hurtling towards Earth tomorrow and we were told, well, you have 24 hours, we'd all kind of fall into that, have I lived a good life? Have I done everything I wanted to do? Ego, integrity versus despair. So those are Erikson stages. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you tomorrow.